Good to have you with us on this Friday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Happy end of the week. We're going to get started this morning with the ongoing legal troubles facing former President Donald Trump, both here in New York and in Washington, D.C.
Mr. Trump will return to a Manhattan courtroom later today for his criminal hush money trial. Tabloid mogul and first witness David Pecker is expected to take the stand again to face more cross-examination. It comes after the Supreme Court yesterday heard more than 2 hours of arguments about presidential immunity. At issue whether Mr. Trump should be immune from criminal prosecution in another case, his federal election interference case. Well, the court appeared to distance itself from the idea of absolute immunity. Some of the conservative justices signaled support for some level of protection for the president.
If someone with those kinds of powers, the most powerful person in the world, with the greatest amount of authority, could go into office knowing that there would be no potential penalty for committing crimes, I'm trying to understand what the disincentive is from turning the Oval Office into, the seat of criminal activity in this country.
I mean, presidents have to make a lot of tough decisions. Did I understand you to say, well, if he makes a mistake, he makes a mistake. He's subject to the criminal laws just like anybody else? You don't think he's in a peculiarly precarious position?
We have got a team standing by to discuss both of these legal issues. We are going to get started with our own legal analyst, Danny Savellas, right here in studio with us. Danny, good morning. Thanks, as always, for joining us. So obviously, we just played quite a bit of this here for our viewers. Walk us through the arguments yesterday and what you took away from it.
So complicated, but I'm trying to boil it down. And really what yesterday was about was concessions and doomsday hypotheticals. On the concession side, the Trump team concedes that a president can be prosecuted, a former president can be prosecuted. Of course, they've always argued this impeachment judgment if he's convicted. But it wasn't a new concession, but what they pointed out is that if it's purely private conduct, an ex-president can be prosecuted. And then on the government side, some concessions as well, although not as easily. The government appeared to concede that in the case where the president is engaged in core presidential executive functions, he may be immune, and they didn't use the word immune, but he may not be prosecutable after he leaves the presidency. So the Supreme Court is left having to draw lines, which are going to be very difficult lines to draw, and they may try to avoid drawing too many lines if they can.
Let's talk about some of that line drawing. What are the possible scenarios here?
One possible scenario is that they could send the case back to the district court for a fact-finding hearing or an evidentiary hearing on whether or not, or to what degree, the allegations in the indictment allege official conduct or private conduct. And what a mess that will make, because if nothing else, it will delay these proceedings further and likely into smack dab into the presidential election. The other thing the Supreme Court can do is really have to draw a line and decide when can former presidents be prosecuted for conduct they undertook while in the presidency. See, in this case, you have what we call bad facts. You have an unusual situation where you have a president who pretty clearly was operating in his own self-interest, but as the president, talking to DOJ lawyers, doing other things that are arguably presidential. So the Supreme Court can't just cabinet itself to these facts. They have to think for the future. And the Supreme Court justices expressed that several times yesterday. Look, we're making a decision for the ages. So they have some really, really difficult choices to make.
So sounds like best guess on timeline and how this impacts the election?
This timeline question, I get it every time, Savannah. And the answer is, especially in federal court, it's when they're good and ready. Although I have to say that justices didn't appear to be in a huge hurry yesterday. We know they can move quickly. Bush v. Gore, they moved in a matter of days. So it's unclear from oral argument yesterday whether or not they consider this a priority to get out in a week or so, or something that can wait several weeks, maybe even months.
All right, Danny, you are going to stick around for our next story. Thanks so much for kicking us off.
Here in New York, Trump's hush money trial continues today with the cross-examination of a key witness.
Yeah, former National Enquirer publisher David Pecker has been on the stand all week as the first witness called by prosecutors. Pecker has been testifying about his role in alleged hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels, as well as former Playboy model Karen McDougal. Trump discussed the testimony heard in court when the proceedings adjourned for the day.
This room, you saw what went on. It was breathtaking and amazing testimony. This is a trial that should have never happened. This is a case that should have never been filed. And it was really an incredible day. Open your eyes. And we can't let this continue to happen to our country.
Now, we're still waiting on a ruling from the judge over alleged gag order violations by the former president over his postings on social media. Now, a new hearing is set to take place next week about more potential violations, including when Mr. Trump met with construction workers yesterday in Midtown Manhattan, which you see here, and directed one of his comments at David Pecker. For the latest on the trial, we're joined by NBC News correspondent Rahima Ellis, who is outside the Lower Manhattan Courthouse. And Danny Savalos remains with us. Rahima, let's start with you. Walk us through some of the new testimony we heard yesterday from David Pecker about his relationship with Trump and these alleged hush money arrangements.
Yeah, one of the things that was really critical to this is that David Pecker made it very clear that he was having conversations with Trump, and often it would be through Michael Cohen, and particularly when we're talking about money and catch and kill deals. He said that Michael Cohen was only authorized to do what Donald Trump instructed him to do in terms of making payments. In fact, Pecker said when he and Michael Cohen went out to lunch, Cohen couldn't even pay for the lunch because it hadn't been authorized by Donald Trump. So when it came to a question of whether or not they were going to pay Stormy Daniels after they had already been alleged payments to Karen McDougal, a Playboy model, as well as to a doorman for a story about Donald Trump, which turned out to be a false story, David Pecker was a little bit reluctant to go ahead, saying that he did not want his paper to be associated with a porn star. And he said Michael Cohen should go ahead and make that payment. Cohen was reluctant to do that. He eventually did. Both of them made very clear that the money that they would be paying to Stormy Daniels, David Pecker said on the stand that he knew that it was illegal. He knew that it was illegal. It later came out that in 2018, he said they got a letter from the Federal Elections Commission, and the suggestion is it was questioning how that money was paid. All of this seems very central to the case that the prosecution is presenting about the money being paid to Stormy Daniels, how it was being paid. And Pecker said that Donald Trump was more interested in keeping the story about Stormy Daniels quiet so that it wouldn't interfere with the election, more so than he was concerned about his family finding out. Joe and Savannah?
So with all that background information, all these revelations so far, Danny, what's standing out to you, both in this direct testimony, but then this little bit of cross-examination we're starting to see?
David Pecker may be the people's star witness. Of course, he's been the only witness so far, but that doesn't mean that he might not be the most effective. First, they called him first, so they feel confident that he's going to be a compelling witness. Second, he's endlessly interesting. Who hasn't been fascinated by this look, this glimpse into the world of tabloid journalism? It's fascinating the way they buy stories. I'm riveted, and when juries are riveted, they're listening and they're buying the story. And that's part three, is the story that they're telling. They're telling a story. And another thing I think juries like, too, is like a Keystone Cops gang that couldn't shoot straight, screw-up type story, which is, at the end of this, it's going to show that David Pecker had this catch-and-kill arrangement. He did it for Donald Trump. He got stiffed on payment, and that may have led to Michael Cohen having to engineer the Stormy Daniels payment himself, which brings us to this case. So juries love stories like this. The people have done a good job telling this story through David Pecker. And on cross-examination, he's a difficult witness to cross-examine. All the regular areas, you challenge his memory, you challenge his motive, because he's here as part of an immunity deal, so he has something to gain. And then you try to establish that this relationship existed far and long before the election, so you diffuse the idea that it's related to campaign contributions.
And you have the extra drama surrounding this entire trial, which is these gag order violations alleged by the prosecution. We heard more of this yesterday, another hearing set for next week. Rahima, what are the concerns prosecutors are addressing now to the judge?
Well, they presented yesterday, before the jurors came into the courtroom, they alleged that Donald Trump made 4 more violations of this gag order. That's 4 on top of the 10 that they had spoken about earlier. And they said, for example, in an interview with a television station earlier in the week, Donald Trump said something to the effect he called Michael Cohen a liar. Well, according to the gag order, Donald Trump is banned from saying things that are attacking potential witnesses in this trial. So the prosecution is saying this is a clear violation as far as they're concerned, and they want Donald Trump to be fined at least $1,000 per violation. They're not calling for incarceration, but they're saying he should be fined. The judge is taking it under advisement, as you mentioned earlier.
Danny, this new hearing will take place without the jury present. What can we expect there? What are you looking out for?
Same as the old hearing. We've already had a gag order hearing in this case, and it sounds like we're just going to have them every week. And judge might just set them for, okay, every Tuesday we'll deal with whatever the last week's gag order violations are. And the judge hasn't ruled on the last gag order hearing. And I think part of the reason why is that all gag orders are constitutionally suspect. There is no such thing as an easy gag order. Unlike other areas of the law, if you gave me 10 different judges and asked them to compose a gag order to the facts of this case, I think you'd get 10 totally different orders and totally different decisions on these hearings. That's because gag orders implicate constitutional concerns that are all crashing together. The First Amendment, the right of the public to a fair trial, and the duty of the judge to protect victims, witnesses, and parties. And so this is a really complicated issue for the judge. I'm not surprised it's taken a while, but he's got to make a decision because it's an ongoing problem. And of course, Trump strategically, maybe he's doing probably I don't want to say the best, but I don't know, clever thing in that he's just doubling down to create an atmosphere where, hey, this is just going to be going on, judge. Either deal with it or throw me in jail. I can't believe you would test the court like that. But looks like that's what he's doing.
All right. Danny, you are released. Mahima, thank you so much for your reporting, as always.
Well, first chunk of the show with us. We appreciate it. Staying in New York, an appeals court has overturned the rape and sexual assault conviction of disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein. The shocking reversal comes more than 4 years after the verdict against him in what was a landmark case for the Me Too movement.
In his appeal, Weinstein argued that 3 women whose allegations against him were not included in the charges should have never been allowed to testify. NBC News senior national correspondent, News Daily anchor Kate Snow explains how we got here and how the accusers are responding.
For the more than 100 accusers of Harvey Weinstein, it was a shock.
This today is an act of institutional betrayal.
In a 4-3 decision, the New York Court of Appeals finding Weinstein is entitled to a new trial. His spokesperson speaking to NBC's Khloe Mass.
What he did might have been insensitive, might have been unethical, but it wasn't a crime. And in order for them to bring it back, they're going to have to find witnesses to come forward with actual crimes.
Weinstein was charged with crimes in New York involving 3 women and convicted in 2020 of rape and sexual assault. But that trial also included testimony from 3 other women who made allegations that never led to charges. The majority in the Court of Appeals concluding the trial court made egregious errors, erroneously admitting that testimony, calling it unnecessary.
The jury was able to look at that and probably infer that he was guilty in the past, so he must be guilty now.
And that's what this higher court said can't be allowed.
That's right.
The state court of appeals also said the trial court abused its discretion when it said Weinstein could be cross-examined about those other 3 women.
And even if he denied them, just the fact of being accused of them could allow the jury to infer his guilt based on prior behavior.
He then decided not to testify. One of those women was Dawn Dunning. She said, "People have asked me if I regret having testified. Was this all for naught? And my answer is a resounding no." We spoke with other Weinstein accusers not involved in the trial.
All of the fear and the panic and the confusion from the original trauma comes back.
I'm deeply concerned. It's a setback for justice for survivors.
In a dissenting opinion, 3 justices wrote, "Men who serially sexually exploit their power over women will reap the benefit of today's decision."
We've already heard this refrain about Me Too has gone too far. And I think that there's going to be some people out there thinking, oh, good. So now we've redressed the balance. And I don't think Me Too ever went far enough.
Our thanks to Kate Snow for that report. NBC News entertainment correspondent Khloe Mass sat in that trial every day here in New York City. She was also there yesterday when this came down. She joins us on set for more. Khloe, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. So tell us, I understand that you also spoke with Weinstein's spokesperson. What did you hear? What did you see yesterday?
I mean, the first questions I really had were, had you spoken to Harvey Weinstein? What was his reaction to all of this? And he said, look, Harvey Weinstein is cautiously optimistic because we have this legal case, this conviction in California where he has 16 years that he will eventually at some point serve. And, they are hoping to get him medical treatment. They say that he has a lot of medical issues and that they're going to be awaiting to see if the DA really decides to retry this again. They have expressed that the Mullineaux witnesses are what prevented Harvey Weinstein from taking the stand in his criminal trial. That was one of the questions that many of us had as we covered that trial. Why are we not hearing from Harvey Weinstein himself until at the very end when he spoke to the judge before he was sentenced? So I think it's going to be a very tough mountain to climb for the DA to have to bring all of these witnesses, get these women to retestify, and then some of those witnesses, they can't testify anymore because it's actually timed out. So it's going to be complicated.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So how likely does a retrial seem at this point? And does that mean that women will have to testify again?
Yes, I mean, they would have to essentially do this all over again. And as you know, some of these women have said that it took years for them to even prepare for the trial and then all of the time it took to do the trial. I mean, Dawn Dunning was one of the women who spoke out yesterday. She was Jane Doe 3 in this criminal trial, and she said, it took up 2 years of my life. And then there are the individuals who come out and say, and the attorneys that say that this is re-traumatizing and to have to go back on the stand and that it's setting the movement backwards. Look, a lot of good came from the Me Too movement, and a lot of individuals were called out for toxic behavior, and individuals lost their jobs, and other individuals like Harvey Weinstein, they did face, prison time. But when you look at what the opinion is from the court, they say that there just was not enough to convict him on those charges in New York because all of the Mullineaux witnesses, which are the witnesses that took the stand to talk about Harvey being a bad guy, to talk about his previous bad behavior, that did not have anything to do with the specific crimes that he was charged for. And that's why this all fell apart. One of the attorneys I spoke to yesterday who represented Harvey, Duncan Levin, during his criminal trial, he's not his attorney of record anymore. He said this is very reminiscent of what happened with Bill Cosby. Being released due to a technicality. So could we see Harvey Weinstein walk a free man one day? According to his team, that's what they're banking on. That's what they believe. They believe they're going to get California overturned and that one day we will see Harvey Weinstein be a free man. But first, we see what happens in New York.
Yeah, remind us about the Los Angeles conviction. So let's put a pin in New York for a moment, which is what we were just discussing. Where does the situation in California stand for Weinstein, and could we also see that overturned?
So he was found guilty on a few charges in California, and, some say it was a stronger case in California, but they did have Mullineaux witnesses, although they're not called Mullineaux witnesses. They had individuals testify about these previous bad acts to basically try, both prosecutors, both in California and New York, tried to say that this was a pattern of behavior, that Harvey Weinstein was a toxic individual and that he had been doing this for years, that this was like a systematic pattern of abuse, both in his production company, on movie sets, and as an individual. And so he was convicted and will serve 16 years, and it's supposed to be concurrent after the 23 years here in New York, going to California, 16 years. Now, last thing I'll say, if New York decides to not retry him and decides to not do this, then California would presumably extradite him to California to face those 16 years. But again, a lot of questions up in the air. His legal team is also hoping that maybe he can get bond and just have an ankle monitor and be out while this is all being figured out.
Khloe Mass, great reporting. Thank you so much for coming and joining us on this.
All right, waking up here in the Northeast is a little colder than you might expect for the end of April. So let's turn out to your morning news now. Forecast: millions will be impacted by a line of strong storms stretching from Iowa all the way to Texas.
We are back in winter coat weather, for which I don't blame you, Angie Lastman. But tell us what's going on. Good morning.
So kind of you not to blame me. Thank you, guys. Yeah, here's the good news. We're going to see these temperatures rebound. So we are waking up a little cool in some spots across the country. But the biggest concern here going through not just today, but the next couple of days is going to be the severe weather. We saw the potential for it yesterday. Some active weather working through the middle of the country. Today, we already are seeing these thunderstorms lighting up across parts of the Midwest, parts of the plains. And this is kind of the area that we're going to be watching here through the afternoon and into the evening hours tonight. We've already got plenty of thunderstorm watches, warnings, tornado watches in effect across this region. You can see parts of Oklahoma stretching into Texas. That is where we're seeing the most active weather this morning, with the ingredients all there for us to see some of those really strong storms, leading us to the potential for some multiple hazards that we'll watch here later today. Let's plan it out for you, because this is today and tonight. We see these storms across parts of the Midwest, across parts of the plains, but it's Kansas City to Omaha that we're really concerned about for the strongest of those storms. And it looks like the hail will be quite impressive. We could be dealing with tennis ball size hail through the afternoon, evening hours, and some of those strongest storms that do develop. We'll also see the potential for EF2 tornadoes or higher. Those really strong tornadoes are going to be on the docket for us here, stretching from Texas again up into parts of the Midwest. And on top of that, those wind gusts anywhere 60, 70 miles per hour or even higher than that. If you're looking for some quieter conditions in this region, unfortunately, tomorrow it's kind of a repeat performance. We see our next system work out of the plains into this same region, and that means that an even bigger area of the country is going to be included in these severe potential here as we get into your Saturday plan. So from the Great Lakes down to, once again, Texas, a good chance that we could see softball-sized hail. We could likely see some of those stronger tornadoes as well, and the intense damaging wind gusts on the table too for us. This is going to be the area that we'll see the best chance for the larger hail, so 2-inch in diameter or larger guys. And unfortunately, this threat is going to last through the weekend into Sunday. We'll still have a potential for some really robust thunderstorms working through this region, guys.
All right, Angie, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.